Hey everybody, so welcome to the very first live event on the channel. So this might need some time to get onto everyone's radar, but it is supposed to be on the very last Thursday of each month. There were some very big news events going on last week, which is why I postponed it until today. But I still think it's going to be a fun time. And if you didn't have a chance to make it, I know not every time zone, this is a friendly time for them all. So in that case, all of these videos are going to be available on the channel if you want to go and re-watch them. So I did get quite a few pitches in. For those that are not aware, this live event is really primarily focused on that peer review of the pitches from the pitch tank video. If you haven't watched that, I have a link down below in the description. Go and watch that maybe after the live stream. And basically write your pitch, send it to me. There is a form in the description of that video where you can actually submit your pitch. You can walk through how I actually do my pitches, and this is how we're going to peer review them. Now, they are all anonymous, so no one's going to, understand the trade secrets that are going on in your company, and it won't be able to be connected back to you, which is really important for, security and, privacy and all of that. And also feel free to chat with each other as I'm going through this. I will be checking the chat, but this video is on a slight delay. So when you're typing, I won't see it until a few moments after you've typed it. So I will go through and I will answer those questions as we go. And feel free to ask any question you want. These are also just for us to get to know each other. And I have so many people, so many lovely people that reach out to me every day. They watch my videos, they get inspired, and they have so many questions. This is a way for you to ask them directly and also ask your peers, since hopefully they will also be chit-chatting as we go along. All right, so with all of that out of the way, let's get into the very first pitch. Okay, so hopefully you can see this up on the screen so that we can follow along together. So this first pitch is really focused on machine learning delivery services. So as we go through, I am going to be giving you my interpretation of some updates that might really help this get across a little bit better. I'm a totally neutral third party. I have no idea who these folks are that are submitting these. And I don't know their background of their company either. So it's a great way to get that interpretation of, am I going too deep? Am I thinking that the stakeholders know more than they actually do? So I'm going to do that, as well as highlight some things that people are doing really well. All right, so ML delivery service. The first thing I will point out here is spell out all acronyms, even if they are really common acronyms, because one example is SME is usually subject matter expert. However, and I thought that was a universal, but I was doing one of my pitches and I said SME and they said small to medium enterprise or something along that line. It was like a business term. And I'm like, oh, there's another word, another thing that this means. So this is just a word to the wise. Make sure that you spell out all acronyms, even if you think they are very commonly understood. So Acme, again, replacing all names as you pitch this. So we're all working for Acme, has delivered successful architectures with wide organizational adoption. So stop right there. So you'll notice that in the form that goes along with the pitch tank video, it is set up in certain paragraphs in a certain order. I have put them in the correct order that you would when you actually write this out as your pitch, and that is what you're seeing here on the screen. I just wanted to make sure you knew that. And so when we're talking about successful, architectural, blah, 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 what's success? Tell me, what is the success? Saying success is saying like, hey, this is good. Good what? Good, tell me good. What does good mean? How did we measure this? Why is it success? So this is a time for you to shine. Say why it was successful. What makes it successful? And here they're saying, namely, business intelligence to go. So maybe the success there is that the architectural adoption that they did allows them to do mobile app and data stream for real-time investment tracking. So investment tracking. Okay, so this is probably for a company that does some kind of real-time investment tracking. Maybe it's a software as a service. Maybe it is some kind of vendor. I'm kind of getting that vibe from this. So it might be good to map out who are your customers. Are they, people that are signing up for SaaS, or are you a B2B, a B2C? Now you might ask yourself, well, Ashleigh, I'm pitching this to my company. They're going to know if I'm a B2B or a B2C. Yes, they will. But maybe your pitch is actually changing that model. So just make sure to say it just to be on the same page as everyone in the room. And there's also new people. New people are getting hired at companies all the time, so they might not know that. So just keep that in mind. Okay, these architectures serve to standardize our cloud technology and abstract away heavy infrastructure work. Okay, so this is one thing, and I'm guilty of it like anyone else if you've watched my videos. Abstract away. It abstracts this out. Not this is only something that people in technology say, but it is something that I would say is maybe one of those squishy words, like abstract it away. Maybe saying point blank, when we're looking at this, it's abstract away the heavy architecture from developers. Okay, so maybe say instead, and it looks like farther down, they define the developers are really sales reps, so like the engineers that are helping customers understand solutions. So say something very concrete here instead. So architecture serve to standardize our cloud technology so that developers don't have to worry about the back end. There you go. They can just get their work done, get in, get out, get the client in, that sort of thing. So you see that's a little bit more straightforward than what we have here. Although I will say this whole pitch is not a bad pitch, by the way. This is me just going through and talking through some things that you might want to consider while you're doing your own pitch. All right, a gap in these architectures is a lack of support for the machine learning delivery to the sales reps. Okay, so here it would have been nice for the sales reps to be connected to when they say developers early on, because it seems like they're using them interchangeably. So it would be good to know that. And then it's specific, and this is good. It's packing the punch. This is exactly what we're going to do. We need to get machine learning delivery support to the sales reps. That is a big problem. If your main clientele, or maybe one of your big new SaaS services, is all machine learning based, it seems like maybe real-time investment tracking is something this company is doing. That would be helpful, probably. It sounds like they're very clearly defining what that problem is. Okay, so then many outside sales reps do not have the skills or patience. I love this. They don't have the skills or the patience. Kind of not nice to say, so maybe think of a different way of saying it. So they don't have the patience. Instead say, you know what, these sales reps, they spend X amount of time on cleaning the data or prepping for their demos. So taking the time to cobble together everything for those demos is really, decreasing their productivity by, 10%, and kind of figure out by talking to your clientele. In this case, you'd be talking to the sales reps to understand what their problems are. Be specific. And when they say they don't have the skills, that I have a real problem with. Every single rep, if you talk to every single rep, they don't all have the same skill sets. So what you might want to say here again is this isn't why you hired them. You didn't hire them to be architects. You hired them to be outside sales support for, potential clients, potential customers. So that's what they should be focusing on, not trying to cobble together an architecture behind the scenes. There should be more of a plug and play kind of approach, which is, I think, the purpose of this pitch. I think that's actually what they're pitching for. But be clear about that. And make sure that you're not turning people away with that negativity. Make sure you're really watching the words that you use. All right, so then we look at they don't want to log standalone ML workbenches. Log in. So one word login. They don't want to log into the standalone workbenches that have been created, or they use incompatible machine learning library scripts. Okay, so this is just talking about the behavior that is being seen. But as the stakeholder in this, what does that tell us? So you could say something like, well, we have already stood up some machine learning workbenches for the sales reps to use, but it does not seem like it is fitting their needs because we're seeing these behaviors. See how it's like switched up a little bit more? I'm no longer saying, well, they just don't have the skills and they just don't have the patience. If only those things were different, my stuff would be fine. See how that goes? You don't want that. So instead, go about how the current solution is not working for the sales reps and what is the behavior that you're seeing that kind of shows that. And just point blank, that's all you need to say. We're seeing there's an issue. We want to make sure that their work is as effective as possible. All right. And they're saying that these things are not supported by Acme. So that's more of a continuity, maybe a security problem too that you want to highlight. So that's good that that's being said. And maybe say that more specifically. So this one is just saying tools that are not supported by Acme. Well, the stakeholders might not realize there might be a security risk. If you're using an outdated library, it might have things that are not safe. So you want to make sure that that's really clearly defined if that's really what you mean. And I don't know what they mean. This is me just going through and trying to work it out and the questions that the stakeholders might have. There is no implicit or explicit support for steps in the demo machine learning workflows, such as, this is good, they're giving the examples, data acquisition and data modeling. Okay, so this is also adding to those problem statements as to, and you can see some of the requirements that might come out of this pitch. So we're seeing that the workbench today doesn't work for them. It seems like it maybe doesn't use the same scripts or the same libraries that the sales reps seem to need. And we also see that it's not supporting data acquisition and model training. It's maybe covering something else. So that's good. Those are things coming together, which is good. As a result, now we're looking at what happens when these things are not covered. Reps using machine learning models, many of which may lack direct experience dealing with cloud infrastructure. Again, I would maybe put that in the sentence where we were talking about their skills and patience and just say that they're not supposed to be cloud architects. They are supposed to be outside sales reps helping the client set things up. But that's where it goes into, because they're not cloud infrastructure experts, they are forced to cobble together patchwork deployment solutions on the fly. Okay, so that's the real meat here. Is it seems like there are some solutions in place, and the good thing is it doesn't seem like they're bad mouthing it, which is good. But what they are saying is the sales reps are not actually being as effective as they otherwise could because there's a lot of stuff that seems to be missing from these machine learning delivery services that those reps are using. So I would definitely, and they do give an example here. A recent example of this is the doc type classifier service, which I guess would be in the investment tracking service they have. Okay, good. So which took the sales rep over 6 hours to locate, spin up, and prepare for demos. Okay, so that's good. Now we're seeing some more meat. I actually would have put this up in those areas about skills and patience and like the main problem statement. Like, hey, today they're spending a lot of time on this, and that's not effective. So that when you get to this example, you can instead say, whereas today this is taking them 6 hours, if we only did X, Y, and Z, and that's what the rest of this document is going to talk about, they could, increase their productivity in the pitches to the customers themselves by X%, or we expect an increase, right? So a question that I got, I did ask questions on these quite recently on LinkedIn. So if you are not following me on LinkedIn, or if you're not, friends or whatever it is connected to me on LinkedIn, maybe do that because that's where some of the questions came from. How do you get these numbers if you haven't done the work yet? A lot of the time the pitch comes before you're allowed to do the POC or you've done a lot of other things yet. In fact, the pitch is sometimes to get resources to do the POC. So in that case, you yourself have looked into this problem. You have skin in the game. You care for some reason. Make me care. That's really what these numbers are. So if you have seen this problem and you feel like there might be a way to fix it or remedy it in some way, tell me why. What market research have you done? What pain have you really heard about? And you're seeing the pain here on the screen, but what made you look into this? There has to be something that gave you some kind of evidence to say that there is a way to address these things. So that's what you really want to put in here as your percentages and those things. And it's okay to say that it's forecasted or expected. Just make sure that you put those words in there so that the stakeholders know that it's not the definitive number yet. They know that it's not something that they should put into their accounting and count on this revenue yet. That's part of all of this. And along those same lines, somebody else also asked, where do you put the supporting evidence? So all of that goes in the appendix, right? So this is a one-pager, but most of the time it's a lot longer because there's a lot of supporting evidence, but it's all in the abstract. Truth be told, most CEOs are going to read this. And by the way, this pitch specifically did not have like the pack-a-punch statement that's supposed to go right after the title. That's missing here. That is what the CEO is, or CTO, or the stakeholder that's going to make the decisions. That's what they're going to look at the most, right? So they sometimes don't read past that. So just keep that in mind. And that's where you really want the why should I care? What's it going to do for my business is there so that you hook them in. And then they can go in and read all the rest of your rationale in the one pager. And if they want to find out, is this person credible? Hopefully, you have a good trust factor with the folks that you're talking to already. But if not, they want to probably at least do their due diligence to make sure the numbers match up. If you're forecasting especially, they want to know like what data points did you use? Did you get the right data points? Because sometimes they'll say, oh, you missed this data point, go back and run your numbers again. All good things to talk about, but a lot of that will be in the abstract, the appendix at the end, so that you can go back in and point to that information and update it also as you go through the POC and get more solid numbers. Okay, so with all of this being said in the pitch, we now get into what do we need to do? What's the punchline? Accordingly, strike that. That's just fluff. Acme needs to invest in an opinionated workbench for machine learning solution preparation. Hey, well, okay. Let's take this step by step because this is very fluffy. This is a fluffy statement. I would put big red marks throughout this. Acme needs to invest how much, how many people, what resources. There should be some more concrete information there. In an opinionated workbench. I don't know what that is. And maybe that's internal lingo. Again, I don't know the company here. I don't know the person who submitted this. So maybe this is a known lingo for your company. That's fine. But you still should like outline what that means. So an opinionated workbench. Yeah, I'm going to assume that means the developers or the sales reps who are actually using it now have the opportunity to put in their opinion, their perspective on how it should be designed so that it is user designed, not developer designed, which is a very common thing that happens in development. Development, gets passed down requirements, they build it to spec, and then it goes out the door. And somewhere along the lines, the communication broke down, and the peoples that are going to be using that solution look at it and say, I mean, thanks, but it's not really what's going to help me. So maybe that's what opinionated workbench means. Because they already said once they have a workbench. So I think this is just talking about like getting the end user. So instead of saying opinionated workbench, just say that. Just say, with the input of the sales reps, we will do this. See? More specific. For machine learning solution preparation. I would add on to this for the sales rep machine learning solution preparation for customer demos or something, like to say very specifically. I know it kind of was hinted at throughout the rest of this, but I would be specific here as well. Okay, so now we're getting into what this would actually include. So automation and guidance in the following areas. And then it says, this is not an exhaustive list. So I'm actually not a fan of putting lists in your pitch. And it's very hard to avoid because a lot of us are used to dealing in, PowerPoint or Excel or, having these large bullet pointed lists to do our pitch or to talk about what is needed for something. So I'm not a big fan of that. However, reading through this, I do feel like this is a lot of really good detail. It's using up a lot of space though, and a lot of it is more on the techie side. So another question that came in from the audience was, which audience are you talking to for this pitch? I mean, when you're talking to your CTO, he or she is going to know about, cloud native ML services and that sort of thing, but your CEO might not really know what those mean. So everything you do should be catered to the audience that you are going to present it to. But keep in mind, the businessy stuff that's in here is maybe something that the tech folks are not as familiar with. And the tech stuff that's in this is going to be stuff that the business folks might not be as familiar with. So use this document as a narrative bridge between their two areas. So keep that in mind, that you should be able to use the same pitch for all of them with maybe minor tweaks, but because you want to make sure that you're delivering something that they can resonate with. If your CTO is all about getting rid of the technical debt and not so much on this stuff, make sure you talk about how this is going to address technical debt or why this might be more important than some of those things. And you don't want to say, that thing's not important, do mine first. You need to make sure that you have it in the back of your mind that that is the thing they care about the most right now. So while you don't want to say in your pitch, here's why my stuff's more important, use the data to support that argument without actually saying it, because business and tech speak data, right? Give me the data to support that decision and we'll roll with it. All right, so let's get into this list. And also, I don't want this video to be a million years long. So we might only get to one pitch this time. That's fine. Like I said, there's going to be more pitch meetings throughout this year. And so we will potentially get to the second one in maybe another pitch meeting later this month, last Thursday of March. All right, so standardized model deployment with CI/CD. Techie jargon, make sure you spell that out or say what that is. Processes and pipelines. Given a trained model, a team should be able to know how to get into production across all business lines without shoulder tapping a DevOps resource. Okay, that's good. So first you might want to explain what a shoulder tap is. Not everybody's familiar with Agile. And then also talk about what is DevOps and why are they not already a resource here. So maybe say something along the lines of, this would actually add a dependency on the DevOps so that most people understand what a dependency is. It means if DevOps is busy, this might get delayed, that sort of thing. Just making sure you have that in there. Architecturally approved cloud services. Add cloud native ML services to the Acme STD list. Okay. This is another reason you should spell things out. Standardized technology document, maybe. I don't think this is probably the common vernacular of what an STD is. So I would definitely spell that out. The next, ML demo monitoring and observability. Ooh, I actually like this one. I like this one a lot. Having done a lot of ML ops and a lot of ML in my past, you spin up demos, you spin up, training sites and other things for people to use, and you forget about them. And they're just running, and people that maybe don't know how much is too much, and if you don't have any caps on your cloud architecture, they could just be spinning up projects and spending all your cash. So make sure you put some observability in that, or put some caps on it so they can't just run rampant, because that happened at a previous place that I worked at. Not fun. All right. EC2 size. Okay, there's another technical jargon thing. Size recommendations. Also, I'm pretty sure EC2 is just a AWS thing. So maybe say in general what this would be called across all the different cloud architectures. Determine appropriate size thresholds for training and inference in order to keep costs low. Okay, another good thing. So here's something though. I'm seeing things about cost, but in the problem statement, it doesn't say anything about cost or observability. But it seems like that's a problem. So I would add that to the problem statement, that maybe they don't know how much they're spending. Maybe they know they're spending too much. That sort of thing needs to be documented, because it seems like there's a few cost things in here in this list. So you want to make sure you can say that there's a really good reason that we need to be going into this. Because yeah, we're talking about the sales reps here not being, totally satisfied and efficient, but by how much? What does efficiency look like? What are those metrics that you're going to be using to measure this? I don't see any of that in this. The other thing is I've already picked up on some security concerns here, as well as cost concerns, and maybe even rights, like who is allowed to get into some of this stuff. And those are really important to a business. And I would say that if you tell them those things, they're going to sign up to help you with this pitch, probably even over getting something more efficient. So just keep that in mind as you go through. There are certain aspects to a pitch that if you have concerns over security, for instance, those pretty much take precedence over some of the other things you might see in here. So just keep that in mind with your business. What are those really high priority things? Okay, integrated patterns with existing Java microservices. Okay, so that's good. So making sure that whatever is being spun up can actually work with the customer site. So maybe there are some reference architectures based on a lot of the clients or the customers they have. Maybe they can have some kind of templating sort of thing. That might be helpful. Model and feature registry. Ooh, I like this. So it's kind of like microarchitecture again, where you're looking at how can I just plug and play to speed up development velocity. Pretty cool. I like that. And project result. Oh, and then there's the templates. Okay, that's sort of what I was talking about before. Okay, so to wrap this one up, and then we're going to get to questions. And that is, immediate benefits of this investment are to improve sales rep experience and easier customer onboarding. How? Is this going to help with renewals or revenue, additional revenue? Is it going to increase our security or our observability and costs? None of that is in here. That should be here. Then it is getting into some of the specifics, like when do you expect it to start? How it's going to be kind of spun up and run. It's not really talking about how many dev resources they're going to need. It does say that there's no PM on this or architecture, which is a red flag to me. Those folks should at least be peer reviewing your pitch before you get to this point with the stakeholders, because they need to have their input in here. So that when you, instead of having what this person has, you would say, having discussed this with PM and architecture, right? You already talked to them and got their, blessing over all of this. Then you can keep going with whatever needs to be done. And then the last thing that is missing is, what is the ask? So they got the promise, right? Like going along with the pitch tank template that I went over before in one of my other videos. But what is the ask? there is an implied ask, but you really need to spell that out. I want one dev resource. I want a dev team. I need this much time, this much energy, this much blah, blah, whatever. That is what needs to be at the very end of this document. And I think even with all of the things that I just went through, this is a really nice pitch. It needs some work, but that's what peer review is all about. And I think this one is gonna be pretty exciting for whoever is working on this. So as a sneak peek for the next pitch, there might be more pitches that come in the meantime, but the next one that we will go over is the news event mining service. So make sure you give this a like and maybe comment down below if you are interested in any of those things. All right, so going into see if there are any questions in the chat, and I am not seeing any, which is good. Maybe that means I have covered a lot of the things people are interested in. So with that, you know, I answered some of the questions that were supplied previous to this pitch tank, and I hope that you have really enjoyed this. I know I have had a wonderful time getting to chat with you live. And hopefully as we, you know, build this up as more of a community, more people can join. If this time doesn't work for most people, I didn't know if people would join if it was on the weekend or, you know, after normal working hours. But please leave it down below in the comments, because I do want to make sure that people can show up to this and benefit from it. All right, so with that, I want to thank you all for joining me today, and I hope that those that could not join and that are watching this afterwards, that please leave your comments down in the chat, your questions down in the chat. I will put more resources down in the description along the lines of like ML Ops, just because that was the topic for today. All right. So